understood. And then the ecological time is much bigger than the biological time. Right. So then the agency or whatever aspects which are being done or by this particular agent or all other microorganisms, then things would be of different phase in terms of evolutionary agency. And then this kind of, the mutations which are coming up as random, it might lead to certain kind of selective criteria. And these selective criteria could be, intrinsic and extrinsic. And with that particular viewpoint, we arise at a position that whenever we are bombarded with certain kind of agents, we are basically in a transitive phase of evolutionary ecological journey. So with all this, I wanted to actually focus on this evolutionary epistemological, but now I have added this point which is called evolutionary ecological epistemology. And when we say ecological epistemological perspective, it can be considered as evolutionary epistemology of mechanisms and evolutionary epistemology of theories. And when we talk about physics of life, chemistry of life, and then biology of life, so how life emerges, how autopoietic or self-organizational structure comes, which is again a problematic viewpoint to understand what are we talking about. In terms of the position that there are problems with heuristic power of reductionism, and with the reduction features to understand the organization of biological entities, and definitely it goes with the holistic and vitalistic viewpoint from the biological perspective also. We tend to miss out certain things. So then what to do? What kind of method we have to adopt as a biologist and philosopher or epistemologist to understand what exactly we want to know and inquire about nature? So Quine's famous, he actually brings a very interesting point called the world is limited to irritation of our surfaces. This irritation of our surfaces is an interesting point for cognitive biology and for evolutionary epistemologists, that a virus attaching with a membrane, so the membranous epistemological viewpoint, that membrane,
For philosophical inquiry, I'm also following a dialectical method of Hegel to understand thesis, antithesis, and develop a synthesis which not only strives to resolve ethical dilemma, to prioritize measures that will maximize greater benefit and minimizing harm for the majority of citizens, and reaches at consensus of human community where each individual would be treated fairly in this crisis. So first of all, I would like to give my brief introduction about my paper, that this COVID-19 pandemic has affected the entire world, and India also has borne the brunt of the same. The spread was so colossal that the WHO it as a pandemic and considering as a global health crisis in today's time. However, in order to control and defeat this pandemic, all countries are making out contact tracing, limiting travel, quarantine, cinema, etc. In other way, we have seen that our himself keep on watching the emerging situation and how the country ensured public engagement through proper messaging with public-centric bottom-up approach on various aspects of health and safety protocols like wearing masks, maintaining social distancing, demonstrating respect for frontline workers, and adhering to lockdown provisions to minimize the impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 is spread in one way or another. It can be argued that, however, India has shown the importance of stepping up public engagement while fighting COVID-19 pandemic. But there are certain measures have taken by developed countries, which is very different from developing countries like India and other South Asian countries, which raises several existential and philosophical questions, because restricting movement and forcing people to stay home might minimize the risk of spreading the coronavirus. But if people cannot move freely to fulfill their basic needs, then there would be a greater risk of hunger and starvation, which pose a serious economic challenge by both the government and the people. So the government of India and elsewhere strives to resolve this dilemma by taking balanced decision which must prioritize measures that will maximize betterment and minimize illness for the majority of the citizens. My next part of my paper is philosophical inquiry COVID-19. In this part, I'm trying to develop what are the questions concerning this COVID-19 and how this pandemic becomes a testing time of human behavior, fair allocation of medical equipments, political will, and several ethical theories to form moral judgment, which help to guide personal, social, institutional behavior. This COVID crisis provides a human food for thought to think critically in multiple ways, and to see what are the dilemma between which action should we follow or which action should discard. Like there are questions like, is COVID-19 a global health crisis or combination of human, economic and social crisis? Does this COVID-19 affect everyone in the same manner? Should we limit our personal freedom to help ourselves and others? Is it a large reflect on crisis, be it environmental, social, economic, and value of humanity differently? Is this COVID-19 developed our moral conscience to think what is right and wrong in a different manner? What can individuals expect from society, and how? Is it just to set economic limit to fighting this disease? Next question is, what kind of challenges arise with members of those social groups who has been living in poverty without access to running water, such as refugees, migrant, and displaced person during COVID-19 crisis? So in order to these questions, my attempt is to investigate philosophical stance surrounding the concept of COVID-19 and how it can be synthesized as a epistemological quest related to Hegelian thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, which dialectically shape the new culture of ethics, which helps to address crises innovatively that are reasonably more transparent, fair, and broadly agreed by everyone. The third part of my paper is the dialectics of COVID-19 human crisis, where I'm addressing the COVID crisis. So before addressing this COVID crisis, it is very important to first investigate historical underpinning of concepts like utilitarianism and deontological position to illustrate the argument for establishing the thesis in support of protecting human freedom either through utility kind of approach or morality kind of approach. Secondly, through harm and moving towards this thesis is concerned within the realm of philosophy inquiry. I am following the Hegelian dialectic to understand this triad and develop us to consider how ethical and moral position can be chosen by people, medical professionals, and policy makers to whom and which patient should be treated first when resources are